I've been playing Minecraft for over 8 years, and in that time I've had 8 main bases that I would have called my home for playing this game at the time. This doesn't include modded, I've done a fair few series of that on my channel. We're talking about vanilla Minecraft here. And our journey starts back on a multiplayer world that I used to run from my own computer. And then I started making YouTube videos, and at that point I decided to send the world to my friend who had a server, could run it 24/7, and a little community started to flourish. And fun fact for you, Full Symmetry, Mumbo Jumbo, and Simply Sark all played in this community, and it was known as Geomine. My base on this server was a giant glass pyramid with half slabs on top of it. And yes, it's not that remarkable, but it was just the entrance. And back then, this would have been considered a big scale build. The game used to be so much slower to play. Now, alongside it, I built this reasonable looking structure, which was actually a home for a wheat farm. And this was the classic design where the water would roll out over all of the crops, destroying them, giving you all the wheat so you could replant it again. There is also this giant tree farm behind the entrance to my base that I was a part of building. We used water streams to collect all of the saplings and move them to collection points, and there was a lot of glass that went into this building, and again, something you'll hear me say time and time again, this took a lot of effort to do back then because the game was so much slower to play. Now, this glass pyramid was simply just the entrance to my underground base, and there were two ways to get down. This, what I called the drop pad, eventually became a tutorial, the second one I ever uploaded to my channel. The second way to get down was, first of all, along this staircase, into this room that I never really decorated or did anything with, and then onto this minecart elevator. Let's see if the redstone still works. Yes, it does, and this I thought quite spectacular at the time. You would get to go around some lava. And then we would arrive in my colourful underground city. It was essentially a corridor. There were 2 levels to this, and there were rooms for certain things. You might think some sort of crazy contraption exists in here, but it was literally just a place for me to store wool and dyes. There was a little bit of redstone trickery going on in here though. A pop-out crafting bench, something you just never see anymore. This next room I'm rather proud of because I actually made an effort to create a room that was more aesthetic than functional. We got tables, we got seats, and clearly some sort of cooking area, and this was a place to come and pick up food. I always thought this was a really cool idea. Basically a vault, a place for me to physically store my most valuable blocks and items. And probably my most impressive room of all was this storage room. I know it's a lot of wood, but the use of the wall and the water I felt gave this room a really nice ambience that was hard to create back then. And I also had a mob grinder with a lot of adjustable features. This stuff was clever redstone wise, but in terms of aesthetics, there's really not much going on over here. And of course I had to build this mob farm with a glass window so we could actually see it in action. And it's a classic old design. If you've ever seen old school mob farms, this will look very familiar to you. So looking back at this old base, it's as janky as the game felt in general back then, but I think there were some promising signs of dedication to doing big projects and also some cool aesthetics in the underground area. After Geomine, I decided to start my very own Minecraft world for a Let's Play known as Xisuma's World. And here you'll see there is a very familiar looking tree farm design that I took from Geomine and put in my world. And I would need this because the big project for Xisuma's World was to have a giant tree and then convert it into a tree house as a base. You can see here though that that was never finished. And essentially I bit off more than I could chew with this project. This was my first lesson in knowing how to pick your battles in this game because I didn't really know how to build a realistic looking tree. I could certainly do the grind and place the blocks, but I had not so much luck building this actual tree, which is why the project eventually became abandoned. I do love the little details down here though of having a glass ceiling underneath the water and then building out the roots of the tree itself into the surrounding terrain. Now much of the world remains unfinished because I had hugely ambitious plans, and before long I ended up on Hermitcraft. So you can see here that I was going to build out a way down to the bottom of the world, and then we were going to have a transport method for a massive tunnel. You can see the shape of it right here, and this was before we had beacons and instant mines. So in today's Minecraft, this would probably be a project you could pull off, but back then I had barely gotten started. And so the big tunnel would lead us to our various projects in the world. This pleasant looking room right here is actually the heart of a cave spider spawner. Down the bottom here where the redstone is, we can kind of look into the spawning rooms. It's pretty classic. Basically, the spiders spawn, they get caught in the water stream and brought to the player. But we also had one at a really obscure angle over here, and I had to engineer this sort of diagonal transport, which is something you just don't really do in the game anymore. When something new gets added, there always seems to be a pretty easy way to farm it. And so nearby there was another piece of engineering at work. I had a slime farm based on 5 different spawnable chunks for the slimes at the bedrock of the world, and the slimes would simply wander off the platforms into these water streams and get broken down into a slime splitter, which would send them into their smallest size, and you can see they then go up a ladder over here. And look at this, we got some classic Minecraft mob glitching going on. This looks hilarious. This is where all the slimes would end up, at a place where either player could come along, punch them for XP, and collect all of their drops. Now, so far, we haven't seen the best of Xisuma's worlds, because in this world, I actually built 2 bases. The other one is right in front of us, and it looks gorgeous at night time. This was known as Atlantis. It was a sandstone build submerged into the ocean, and it was a real coming together of ideas and aesthetics as well. You could look down into the base when you arrived on a boat over the top, and there was actually a boat catcher right here to drop the player into the base, and then they could launch themselves back out again later. Now this room is where I think the aesthetics meets the technicality. The room looks really great, and we have some wonderful redstone contraptions right here. These are animal breeding cells, and as you can see, they keep animals in minecarts and shuffle them around into different cells. You could then breed the mushrooms together, the baby would get separated, and you could put them back into their containment cells again. So not only an amazing contraption, but the room looks really cool from down here as well. And I think that sounds true for every part of the Atlantis project. Down here is where the baby animals end up. There are shearing stations for the mushrooms on one side and a killing chamber in the middle, but the room just has a very pleasant aesthetic to it. This room then has a lovely spiral staircase leading downwards with, again, really soft and nice aesthetics, leading to this massive basin under the water, and this is where several water streams will spread out across all of the crops and bring every single drop to a single point in front of the player. Now they say save the best to last, and I think down here is probably my favourite part of the entire Atlantis project. And there it is. I remember spending many an hour working on this ceiling, and it looks absolutely amazing down here. Of course, it's a very old school feeling Minecraft build, but I think this still looks absolutely fantastic. It is, of course, a wool farm of sorts, where each of the different colours of sheep are separated into their own little pens, and then you can use water to shear the sheep as they bob up and down and collect all of their items below. Now there is a lot more going on in Xisuma's world, but I think we've seen everything we need to learn what type of Minecrafter I would become. This is all about mixing aesthetics with technical projects and creating a really nice environment to play in, and that is very much going to reign true of my future bases. My next base was known as Avalon. It was a giant island on Hermitcraft which I wanted to populate and transform the entirety of, and I definitely didn't achieve that within the lifespan of the series. However, there were so many projects and things done here that we're not going to be able to cover all of them in the video. We will, however, start right here at my mob farm, and it is a joy to see how great this still looks. This was the first time I'd really done any natural aesthetics at all, working with trees and vines and bushes and cocoa beans. You could see I'd really tried to bring a good natural aesthetic to this build right here, and the jungle trees are actually trying to disguise the top of a mob spawner, where mobs would go to the top, as we can see right now, and then they would fall down so that I could kill them with one hit. So again, the theme of technicality and aesthetics comes together in my playstyle, but this was really technical, this project. As you could see, there are a bunch of switches over here, and you could actually send the mobs off to different parts. You can see there's a selection system here where the mobs get directed onto the bit you've already seen, and then you could select other options as well to send them to different places. And one of those was this water stream right here, which would lead the mobs underground. This is where the mobs would end up, and we could then equip them with armor or weapons and send them to different places. We had an arena and also a dungeon. Now these are just the sorts of projects you wouldn't attempt in a single player world. I made this for my fellow hermits. It's an arena for fighting those mobs. They could collect up in the ceiling and using redstone drop them down equipped with armor and weapons to fight all of the players. And another thing I noticed here, again, I seem to love just digging out under oceans and putting in glass roofs. Again down here we have a really nice combination of smooth stone slabs and sandstone. I kind of feel like I should use this more often. Another part of my base that was really important was the nether dimension. You see, I created a whole bunch of nether portals to get around to different parts of my island. So it was like my own miniature personal nether hub. And above here was one of my most favourite projects ever, to create a miniature map inside of the nether of the island itself. So then all of the portals would kind of link up to where you could visibly see it on the surface. On the surface of the island there was more attempts to mix technical farms like with animals with aesthetics. I absolutely love this beach project right here for my animal breeders. But over on this side is an area I wanted to talk about more, because this is where I really started to challenge myself. And like over in the jungle area, I had tried to carve out some gardens and create some more natural environments for the player to walk around. And this challenging yourself, I think, is a really good thing to do in this game. And just walking around this area, to this day, I actually think it turned out really good. I love the fencing to partition the paths, and all the little details like wheat and grass look really good. And of course, we can do so much more than that today. Behind this area is where things get a little bit janky. I attempted to build some houses. You would have noticed so far I haven't built many standing isolated individual structures, and although these are interesting attempts to build in particular different styles, they're not terribly realistic and they have kind of a lot of flaws. But it was a very good project to practice with, and probably the best of all of them was the church building in the middle here. I have been pleasantly surprised by my Season 1 base. It's actually the more difficult stuff, like working with the bushes, the jungle area for example. I think that stuff still looks pretty good till this day. But anyway, it's on to the next base, Season 2 of Hermitcraft, and this is where I really kick things up a notch. And that is because of the excessive grind that this base was. It was a conceptual idea to transform all of the terrain around me for as far as you can see. Welcome to the wastelands. This used to be a desert, but I mined out all of the sand and the sandstone and left the stone behind to create these incredible formations. And when you fly around and explore this area, you can kind of see where rivers used to be and other features of the terrain. Now I've cranked the view distance up to 24, and with this you can see the distance at which I mined out to. And on the old view distance of the server, it used to be as far as you can see. What a crazy way to set up an entrance for a base. Now this was simply the storage area for my base, very plain and functional with some hidden rooms and contraptions down the bottom here. It was all about dropping into the base, which we shall do right now, and behold, the area underneath the wastelands. Unfortunately, this was about as far as I got. You see, it took me a long time to do the area up above, and this really would have been a fantastic start to a wonderful base. I did manage to decorate one room over here, but there isn't too much going on. I've got some animal farms prepared for the future that never came to be because another season started. And over on the opposite side, an early concept of a wool farm that I built on Season 3. And so the majority of this base is really just about the grind and doing the hard work. And when it came to the aesthetics, we really put a lot of detail and care into this. As you can see, there are diamond ore and emerald ore being thrown in here just for the looks. If the underground portion of that base had ever reached a point where I could say it was finished, then it probably would have been one of my best. However, I spent a lot of time in this season doing other projects as well, like this absolutely ridiculous and over-the-top gold farm. So it was one of those seasons where I kind of spread myself out a lot. Season 3 was not quite the same, as I actually took on a grandiose base project. But first of all, we're over here at Hermit Hills, just to remind you how fantastic our communal area is. And the first thing that I set out here to do was to build a little tower of my own and put a compact base inside of it. And looking back on this build, I still think it looks really great. And the interior here is especially fantastic. I always love this combination of blocks down here on the ground. But anyway, let's get over to where my base is located. Now, a common theme you'll see for my bases is that the above ground is often not well to attended to. The plan was to actually build an entire city inside of this little basin area here with the surrounding amplified terrain to complement it. But we never got that far, and that's because I built an absolutely ginormous underground section. And this was a pretty well realised and finished underground base. First of all, we had an over-the-top ridiculous storage system on the very first floor. And of course, it had some of the best and craziest of redstone sorting systems and all kinds of contraptions to move items around from different parts of the base into the storage system. The second floor of the base took on a different block palette, which made every floor feel really unique. This one was mostly dedicated to villages and things that you could do with them. We had crop farms over here, a smeltery system, a place to enchant, and then an area dedicated to trading with villagers. The main problem was, though, that I never got them out of the old school trading hall out the back here. So we used to breed villagers, bring them into this area and shuffle through their trades, and if we didn't like them, we could get rid of them. The best floor of this base was undoubtedly the third one down. This was an automatic potion brewing system for 10 different types of potion in the game. And when I say automatic, we are talking about automation when it was far more difficult in this game. We had a through line of these hoppers delivering water bottles to each of these different brewing setups. And so out the front here, you could walk up to the potion type that you wanted. You could take some potions out of the chest, and then the machine would start brewing automatically and restocking your supply. Floor number 4, again, using a different block palette, and I noticed this is actually quite unfinished. This was a place for miscellaneous farms. So cocoa bean over here, then we had cactus in this area, and we also had a sheep farm hidden behind this area. I'm so glad I'm not in survival right now. Jeez, that guy would have made a mess. I did say the second floor was dedicated to villagers, but I completely forgot that down here there were actual villager crop farms in each of the corners of this glorious room. And you know what? This base wasn't quite as complete as I thought because I never really got started on the 6th floor down the bottom here. And once again, the common theme is uniting technical projects with interesting aesthetics, giving everything a home that looks cool, like this little project right here. This season, we really nailed the interior design down below, but we kind of fell short on doing the exteriors with buildings. However, this was probably one of the nicest exterior buildings that I've built so far. And that was to be swiftly outdone by my Season 4 base, which I think is basically finished. There's probably one or two small projects that I didn't quite wrap up, but it started with this over here and ended with that ridiculousness, which we will get to. At the beginning of the season, I decided to challenge myself with focusing on exteriors, and I came up with my own build palette and build style over here, which birthed these really cool terracotta roofs. You can see that the main base has 3 sections of these cool terracotta roofs. At the back of my base, we have pathways and gardens built on top of the mesa biome, a beautiful custom tree by Iskau over here, and then a botany lab, which I built for this third building. When we go inside, you can see, look, literally just rows of flowers, but this room looks amazing. Now, the actual entrance to my base was really fantastic with these armor stands on either side, but I can never get away from the redstone and the technical projects. You can see here we had a fancy automated door where the glass gets pushed up, and then, on cue, it gets pushed back down, right? Come on now, don't fail me. There it goes. Brilliant. Oh, and here is that floor pattern again that we used from Season 3. I had a smeltery over here, and then I had my main storage area. From here, the base kind of sprawled out wherever it needed to. In the attic, we had some mementos and various things set up from events that happened throughout the season. And then, utilising the underground, which I didn't really do too much of, we had these interesting looking rooms for various projects, like potion brewers, and sugarcane farms and melon farms and whatnot. This led down to another floor that was basically not populated with any other project, but it was certainly ready for expansion. And at the very bottom of the base we had these winding corridors which led to other various technical contraptions and also the tunnel that went to the Logfeller's headquarters. Now the second half of my base was a guardian farm in which I had to decorate it in ridiculous ways. I always love taking a simple technical project like a farm and then finding a way to make it look so extravagant, which is exactly what this is. And it doesn't end just there, because below we have an interesting storage system, but also this absolute incredible area right in here. If you've never seen this before, you're probably thinking, wow, that's what I'm thinking, and I've seen it many, many times. This was just an incredible project to open up all of this space, and then we built a massive shulker box storage system and a regular storage system here. This basically became my new storage system after some time. So looking back at this season, I actually think this was my best execution of what I like to do in this game. Not only did I push my building style with the one that you see behind me, but I took my favourite thing to do, technical projects, make them look interesting, and really did something absolutely over the top here. Now in Season 5, I think I did one better than my Season 4 base. We went absolutely nuts with the concept for this. We are inside of a volcano. And down here you can see that there are different levels to the base. There is a crazy redstone contraption with this sorting system that actually spans around the entire outside here. And then in the underground areas there are just all sorts of projects equally organised on each of the sides. And then down in this ominous pit right here, we even have a mushroom farm, because this is in the middle of a mushroom island. This volcano is just simply stunning. I built it slowly over the course of the season, a few blocks at a time, and then surrounded the outside with these custom biomes where I tried my hand at different building styles and also creating my own building palettes for those biomes as well. As you can see over here, this is fully customized. The problem here is that I bit off more than I could chew, and after this swamp biome that we have here, there is a ominous black hole. And then things just kind of end because I never got to finish the project. And here is the mycelium island with all of the mycelium stripped out and just dirt blocks remaining. This build down the end here was pretty gorgeous though. We had our own personalised sheep farm for gathering lots of wool. This is a common thing that I build every season. One of the highlights of this base is where I challenged myself. I built these little microbiomes to showcase the mob heads that we had introduced for this season. And so we have a walk through all types of different things. We're in a woodland mansion at the moment, and then we go into like a plains biome, which can lead us into a village or into a sandstone temple. This leads us into an igloo, and then we've got a minion guardian temple and a taiga biome and a swamp biome over here. There were many interesting things in this base. I had this room of death, as I thought of it. I think it's actually a room of derp, because there seems to be derps logged inside of here. Now the classic Doom guy face you might recognise from somewhere here is pretty fantastic. The area behind it, a little plain, but again, really cool things in this space. These were mementos from interesting episodes where something unique would happen and I would keep with me a memento to remember them by. Oh, and we also had a map room to track the progress. This was far earlier in the season, and this was basically the end of the season. And do you know what? It goes on and on. This space was rammed with all sorts of projects, and one of them was hidden in this wall over here. You'd barely notice it unless you knew where to look. And again, mixing the technical projects with the aesthetics, we had a creeper record farm over here with a skeleton continuously shooting the creepers that would land in front of it. And yeah, the aesthetics of this room are very pleasing, and I love this little rainbow colour blend set up for all the records here. And so Season 5 was very much focused on being a hermity season where we all focused on our own bases, and because of that, I got to put a crazy amount of time and dedication into this, and it's been soured by the fact that I never finished this base. However, looking at it after my Season 4 base, there's no argument, this has got to be the best one that I've ever built. Now, if you're watching the Hermitcraft series, then my Season 6 base won't be of any surprise to you. It's a very interesting build, but it's not quite as grandiose as last season's base. And it does have an absolutely fantastic interior and a real nice ambiance about it. But I think the thing here is that I've taken all that I've learned over the seasons of playing Hermitcraft, and I've executed this base really well, just on a much smaller scale because I knew that I'd be spreading my builds this season across the Hermitcraft world. Now you've made it this far into the video, and so I have a treat for you. I actually have two of the very oldest worlds that I ever played in, and I'm not sure if I've shown them on a video or not because I wasn't sure how to get these to run, but today I figured it out. And I remember playing in this one where I dug all the way down to the bedrock. This would have been within the first weeks or month of playing this game, and so you can see things are pretty boring. This is about as creative as I got for my storage room. There was this little corridor here where I decided to hide the torches with glass above, which was a first little spark of creativity. And then out the front, like many players would have done first playing with Minecraft, I had some experiments with lava. And to get a good look at all of that mess I'd created, I built my first tower on top of a hill. Another common project, there's pretty much nothing of interest inside of it. What is interesting is this barren valley over here. This used to feel really epic. I have vivid memories of looking out over this field. You see, the trees might look like they've been partially chopped down, but there was actually a fire that spread through all of this area, and I remember coming out here in the night and just watching all of the trees burning. And apparently I decided to build a second tower on top of that hilltop. Now after that world came another one, and this is when I know I had started watching YouTube videos. There is evidence of that in this world, but first of all, let's take a glance at this map. I never really explored a lot of it, and also this was my little entrance to the Nether. I spent a lot of time digging this out, and it doesn't really look that interesting. But of course, this was a very different game back then, and I wouldn't have got to have ever seen this world flying around it from up above. I would have always been down on the ground. And here is that evidence of me watching YouTube videos. This is a passive mob farm, a very old design, one of the first mob farms ever, I believe, designed by Kearshar, a name that will ring out among those of you who have been playing Minecraft for the longest. So the sand pyramid here was actually a cactus farm. This horrible cobblestone box was some sort of attempt at having a mob farm. This clumsy and awkward looking house was just a place to store some things and smelt some items. And then this dull old looking building, which was dedicated to storing walls and dyes, and I didn't have a lot of them. Now at the time, I genuinely thought this was the most fantastic thing I'd ever built, and you know what, it probably was the best thing that I built at that point in the game. This was my main base, and it was just a very strange structure. And then on the inside, a storage area with signs telling you what you could find in each of the chests. Oh, I was so organised back then. And that's pretty much it, you know. I fell in love with this game at this point. It felt like the best thing ever. And that's pretty much it. I probably spent a few weeks to a month in this world before I started the Geomine server that you saw earlier in this video. And so I think it's fitting that we sign out this video where it started on the Geomine server. I very much hope you have enjoyed this tour of the evolution of me and my base creation inside of this game. It was so fantastic to look over these old worlds. I thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, then leave a like, and I'll see you soon with another Minecraft video. Bye bye.